This show is proudly supported by Habitats at Home, Australia's leading PVC reptile enclosure specialist. Check them out on Instagram and Facebook at Habitats at Home, and be sure to visit habitatsathome.com.au if you're in the market for a new PVC reptile enclosure or other reptile accessories. Massive thanks to Tyson over at Habitats at Home. We'd like to thank our podcast sponsor, Varana Bay, reimagining reptile keeping through innovation. They combine quality, design, and function to create high-end 3D printed reptile products. And if you've got a unique setup or problem, they'll craft a custom solution made just for you. Check them out on Instagram at Varanibay. This show is proudly supported by Dan from Red Earth Reptiles. If you want to drool over some of the best looking green tree pythons in the country, check out Dan on Instagram at red_earth_reptiles. G'day and welcome to Under the Heat Lamp with Joe Mack. Today I am filming a bit of a different episode today. This is another solo one. I haven't done a solo episode for a long time, and some recent events have encouraged me to do so. If you are as online as I am and within the reptile community, there's no doubt you would have seen or heard the whispers going around, or not so whispers, but a bit of publicity surrounding a new docuseries coming out on August 6th titled Monsters of God by Eric Good, who is the creator or one of the creators of the very famous and very popular Tiger King. He also did Chimp Crazy as well, which is one that sort of flew under the radar a bit, at least I think for Aussies, but Tiger King was released in 2020, mid-COVID. Everyone went crazy. Sensational characters, super enthralling TV to watch when we were all stuck inside with not much to do. In one of the sort of opening scenes to Tiger King, they are filming at a guy's place by the name of Tom Crutchfield, who some keen listeners to this podcast might be aware of my relationship with Tom already. But I guess what happened in that scene was they were filming at Tom's place for this Monsters of God, which I don't know if it was named that back then or not, but they were filming that, and then I believe it was Mark McCarthy pulled up in a van with a snow leopard in the back, and from what I can gather, and what I sort of making an assumption here, that the Tiger King, they made it sort of seem like that they pulled up in 40-degree heat in South Florida with a snow leopard in the back of the van, but like, these people love their animals, so I don't think that this guy rocked up with just a leopard half dead in the back of a van. I'm sure it was an appropriate van to transport big cats, but anyway, I digress. So the idea of Monsters of God, from what I can gather, is that I like to think that, I guess my prediction is in a hopeful way, that this is sort of just showing the history of what quite a lot of these guys sort of did within the realm of reptiles back in the day. Tom filmed this like 10 to 15 years ago, so there's no sort of recent stuff, at least on Tom. I'm not sure about too much of the other characters in the series. I'm not too sure about the filming of them, but I'm pretty certain that for Tom, the filming for what he did was from a long time ago, and he was talking about some of the sort of experiences he's had within the reptile industry, which I'm not going to probably go into too much, because I don't know exactly what they are or and that sort of thing. But yeah, anyway, so I'm hoping that it'll just be sort of like a history lesson on what these guys did, and illegal, legal, above board, not above board. We'll see how it pans out. But from watching the trailer, which if you haven't watched it, definitely just jump onto YouTube and look up Monsters of God. I think it's going to be definitely more leaning towards the illegal and exciting side of things. And I'm really eager to see it and to see how it unfolds for the reptile world. I I think that in Australia we're a long way away, and we aren't doing anything crazy like we don't have any exotic snakes over here. But I think there could potentially be some ramifications over in the US in terms of how lax some of their laws are with things. But then again, I don't really know. I'm just an Aussie guy yapping on my podcast. Um, Something that I found interesting about the title is that Monsters of God is something that Tom used to talk about back when I was there, and the point of this episode mostly is just for me to talk about and tell people about my experience with Tom. But back when I was spending a bit of time at Tom's place, he used to refer to certain animals as monsters of God. He would be like, a gorilla, that's a monster of God. A rhinoceros, that's a monster of God. A king cobra, a monster of God, or a large reticulated python, or whatever. And he was just sort of referring to them as, large animals to be respected and revered, maybe. I'm not sure if Eric Good, the producer, has gone for a bit of a double entendre there with the title and maybe insinuating that the people are the monsters of God. I don't know. I don't know if that's even linked or not, but I have definitely I can recollect Tom referring to some animals as the monsters of God, as a monster of God. But anyway, let's rewind it back to when I met Tom. In 2016, I moved to Miami, Florida for a semester of university. Back then, I was studying aquaculture, funnily enough, nothing to do with reptiles. It was pretty bloody early on in my journey with reptiles, very early on, actually. And in my first couple of weeks of arriving at the University of Miami, there was a reptile convention happening on campus. It was called Repticon, and it was at a big sort of hall space right near where I was living. It was literally like a couple 100 meters away. So I popped down one day and I was walking around there and just chatting with people because obviously I had no idea how things went. Saw a shitload of ball pythons, which were new to me. I was going to say new and exciting, but unfortunately the ball pythons never really tickled my fancy. So, but anyway, saw a lot of them and was chatting with a few people, and I was pretty eager to get amongst the reptile community in some capacity. I just wasn't sure exactly what it was. So I was just asking around to see if potentially there was somebody nearby who'd be willing to take me on as a volunteer, just to sort of get some just hands-on experience with reptiles. And I met the guys from Get Hooked Snake Hooks, and I was having a yarn with them about it, and they wrote me down this guy's phone number on a piece of paper, and it was Tom Crutchfield, a name who I'd never even heard of. And so I got back to my dorm room and I pulled out my phone and I gave him a call, and Tom answered, and we talked for a long time, but at first it was like, who are you? Like, why do you want to come to my house? What makes you think I would let you in? Like, who are you? You're from Australia. And he was like, who do you know that I know? And I was like, oh, I don't really know anyone. I'm pretty new to this. So anyway, the conversation progressed, and eventually he was like, you know what, why don't you just come out to my place and I'll meet you and I'll see what you're all about and see if see if we could work something out there. And I pretty rapidly organised the time with him to head down there. And I remember it was a bloody trek. I had to catch a train or a bus for like an hour and then a train for another hour. And then I got out at some dodgy bloody town. It was Homestead, Florida, if I've got any American listeners now. I now know that Homestead is not exactly the most luxurious of of areas, but I got off the train there and I jumped in an Uber and I went to Tom Crutchfield's place, which was a bit enlightening. We drove down a dirt road with big potholes and there was a lot of water around. It was August in Miami. It was hot and wet. And anyway, I get to Tom's place and there he is. He stepped down out of the rattlesnake building and come and said hello to me, and yeah, we just went from there. I was able to sort of forge a pretty decent relationship with Tom, and yeah, I guess I don't know if I must have impressed him somewhat because he was willing to let me come there every Friday and work with some of the animals just to sort of build up some experience there, and that's what I did. Thank God, not too far after that, time wise, I made a good friend who had a spare car, which was just ridiculous. So that 2.5 hour public transport turned into like a 45-minute car ride. Thank all buggery for that. I was able just to drive down there. So yeah, every Friday I would skip whatever uni class I had on. I found going to Tom's to be far more important. But my role there, for the most part, was feeding the iguanas. He had a lot of iguanas living outside. I guess, yeah, maybe for context, that sort of area, like climatically, is pretty similar to Cairns, far north Queensland, where I am now. So very tropical, wet season, dry season, and Tom was able to take advantage of this climate and keep a lot of animals outside. He was really big. This is 2016, by the way. I should mention if I haven't mentioned that yet. So it's a decade ago now. We're literally creeping up on 10 years in a couple of weeks' time, which is just crazy. Not getting any younger. But anyway, so Tom kept the majority of his collection back then was green iguanas. He was producing these albino green iguanas. I'm going to go through. I've got a few pictures here that I've dug up from a decade ago to flick through. So I'll just sort of do a recount of my time there, and then we'll flick through some pictures to keep the eyes eyes happy. I guess looking at me probably isn't all that interesting for the most part. So yeah, a lot of green iguanas outside and a lot of cyclura, like rock iguanas. Yeah, he had rhino iguanas and a couple of grand cayman iguanas as well. Outside there was also a lot of big snakes, so reticulated pythons, Burmese pythons, Indian rock pythons. There was a couple of diamond pythons outside. A few monitor lizards. I think there was blue tree monitors, but not too many. I think towards the end of my time with Tom, he actually got in his crocodile monitors, which, if you're in the reptile community, you've almost certainly seen Tom's videos of feeding his croc monitors. Actually, that's a video I should have dug out. But anyway, one for another day. He was able to tame down these very, very large, very formidable monitor lizards and make them like puppy dog tame. It's very impressive. So yeah, so I was going to Tom's every Friday, feeding iguanas, and then Tom was producing a lot of small constrictor snakes as well. So there was a room there where I would go in and just clean from one end to the other, and predominantly it was boas. It was Dominican red mountain boas, Jamaican boas, Cuban boas. There was a couple of random little ones too. I can't even remember what they were, but tiny little killer Bothris or something. Epicrates. I don't know. I can't remember. But that was my job, yeah, to go in there and go top to bottom, left to right, and systematically clean everything. And I had my hands full, that's for sure. After a while there, Tom was gracious enough to, I don't know, he must have seen something in me that he thought I was capable to start doing just a little bit of training with the venomous stuff. There's a picture in there. I'm pretty confident it's the first time I ever touched a venomous snake. It was a leucistic monocled cobra, which is a white snake, and I think my skin was actually whiter at the time. I was shitting myself. That was, yeah, an interesting experience for sure. There was another room in there with a bunch of rattlesnakes, more rattlesnake species than I even knew existed. Tom had quite a collection of them, which for an Aussie guy was wildly fascinating. You know, being able to walk into a room and hear the rattle of several different many snakes, and yeah, I kind of thought that Aussie herpers were getting ripped off for a while because, you know, American herpers, their snakes let them know when they're nearby. You know, Aussie snakes don't don't give you that sort of I don't know, warning, I guess. Um, but yeah, so I managed to be lucky enough to work with some of the rattlesnakes and some cobras and some vipers and a few other bits and pieces. We had some interesting experiences with some really large snakes as well. But yeah, I guess maybe the overarching thing here is that um, Tom did a lot for me when he didn't have to. And yeah, he really took me in and took me under his wing and spent a lot of time with me teaching me about, animal behavior and how to deal with the animals and handle them and how to house them and how to set up their housing. And he really instilled in me an ethos about not scaring the animals was a really big thing. And I guess maybe I was probably a bit of a blank canvas for him. He was able to instill in me a lot of the sort of primary or fundamental theories about working with animals that are pretty integral to being successful with the animals. And yeah, he always took care of me, but he always took care of the animals as well. Everything was very well kept in my experience there. Everything, shits got cleaned pretty quick. Water got changed frequently. They were all in appropriately sized enclosures. So yeah, I guess um, yeah, a lot of my theories and ethos towards the way I keep reptiles was instilled in me by Tommy Crutchfield back in the day, which is pretty cool. And you know, unbeknownst to me, I had no idea who Tom was back at that time, which I think was pretty cool. I had no prejudices or preconceived ideas about who Tom was. I just got to have the experience of, just experiencing him for who he was and how he treated me. Um, I have heard a bit from other people about some maybe some negative experiences other people had with Tom or whatnot. I don't know whatever I'd heard, if they were rumors, if there was any substance to any of them or not. But yeah, I guess all I can really say is that my experience with Tom was very, very positive for sure. Overall, he literally treated me like a son and took a lot of care of me. And when I was I was a long way from home and I was a long way from my family as well. Yeah, Tom took damn good care of me. Something that really stood out to me. Well, that doesn't make any sense, really. It's obviously it would stand out to anyone. Firstly, his house was hot pink, just painted hot pink. This big house in the middle of the property. And when the day I first arrived there, I walked in through the front door, and he turns around and goes, "Oh, mate, just make sure you shut the door because the monkeys are out." Fucking what, bud? And sure as shit, as I walked inside the house, this little common marmoset, it was, there's a picture I'll pop up later on, it literally ran across the couch and jumped up onto my shoulders. And that was a pretty regular thing, I guess, at Tom's place. Yeah, he had, rhino iguanas that essentially came to their names and monkeys that free ranged in the house, which was pretty bloody epic. Yeah, I got reptile experience there and just life experience, I guess, that I would never have gotten anywhere else, not in a million years. And from knowing Tom, I came back to Australia. I was there for about 6 months in total, and coming back to Australia, I was able to reach out and make connections uh, with other sort of well-known people in the Australian herp community through my connection with Tom. One of the big ones was Chris Smith, who I don't know if he listens to this, but if you do, Smithy, appreciate you, mate. I reached out to Chris and said, hey, I'm in Brisbane. I'd love to come and check out your snakes. I'm a friend of Tom Crutchfield's, and just like any other reptile person would say, is who the fuck are you, and why would I let you into my house? But Chris said, I don't normally do this for strangers, but I guess if you're a friend of Tom's, then that'd be okay. And I went on to go to Chris's place and hang out with him and meet a few of his snakes, which was also very impactful for me. Going back 8.5, 9 years ago now, which was cool. And Chris is still a mate of mine. He's been on this podcast as well. If you haven't listened to it, I can sneak back and listen to that one. And, Peter Birch is another one who I was able to reach out to um, after that experience. And Peter Krause as well is another one that Tom and Peter Krause had a pretty strong friendship from back in the day as well. And yeah, I talk to Tom semi regularly on the phone these days. And yeah, I do think he's been incredibly formative in I guess if not my life, definitely my career, and well, probably my life. Look what I'm sitting in front of. My house is full of bloody reptiles, and I don't know if that would have happened without Tom. And actually, looking at these green pythons reminds me that when I was there, Tom actually hatched out a clutch of high white arus, which I didn't know what I was looking at the time, but I was like, damn, these little tiny things are sick. Yeah, so worked with some arus and some Timor pythons and some Angolan pythons. You can just keep thinking about different species, and yeah, he just had so many. But yeah, probably enough yapping, and I might just jump into some of these images. Yeah, so there we are at Repticon Miami, looking a bit frazzled. I don't know what the occurrences were the night before this was taken, but I was in Miami and I was 21, so yeah, it's anyone's guess. Some sort of ball python morph. I literally have no idea. But there was a shitload of these things. It was insane. There we are with one of the leucistic monocle cobras. I don't think I look very calm and relaxed at all, and that's because I wasn't. I was, sufficiently shitting myself. But very cool snake, very, very cool snake. And I have since come to learn that the snakes we deal with up here or over here in Australia are significantly harder to manage than these things. The cobras have a rather predictable behaviour for the most part, which is pretty easy to deal with and also quite easy to manipulate as well. These are or were Tom's bread and butter. I believe Miami went through or Florida went through a banning of the green iguanas because they are an invasive pest over there. So he doesn't do them anymore, but there's 3 albinos which were fetching a pretty penny about 10 years ago. He had stacks of them. This is a special lizard to Tom. He still has this one. This guy's name's Hemingway. He's a Grand Cayman iguana, which is Cyclura something or other. And this photo was taken by Chris Gillette, who is on Instagram as Gator Boys Chris. And before I went to Miami, excuse me, before I went to Miami, we joked about, maybe you'll get on an episode of Gator Boys or something. And I was like, oh, how outrageous. And then I met one of them, which was pretty cool. Tom had a name for this snake. He called it the purple people eater, which was a damn cool snake. He had a stack of monocle cobras which he milked for their venom, or he didn't. There was a guy by the name of Ray Hunter who was an interesting guy. Ray had been self-immunizing using at least cobra venom, maybe other species, for many, many years, and he was he built up a resistance and was able to take full-blown bites from monocle cobras. So he was the one that would milk the monocle cobras, and they would use their venom for production of drugs, prescription drugs, I believe. I believe it was a dog and cat painkiller called Cobraxin, if my memory serves me accurately. But actually, one day when I was there at Ray's place, he took a bite from a monocle cobra, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that's probably a lethal dose. I might just sit down for a minute." And just sat down for a while, and then got on with his day. A little bit after that, he had 300 cobras to milk, so no time for sitting around. There's a large-ish gaboon viper there. He had quite a few of those kicking about the place. This one was enormous, literally like a 5-foot, God, I don't know, 8-kilo snake, maybe more. Yeah, it's a proper monster. Yeah, so This iguana here, the albinos we looked at before were just standard albinos, and I think Tom used to refer to these as the Crutchfield crimsons. I don't know what morph was in it. Yeah, I'm sure he told me, but skipped my mind. Maybe it was one of the red iguanas, the big. Yeah, God, I don't know. I'm freestyling here. That's Roscoe the rhino iguana. Super, super friendly, and like, I'm no reptile behavior expert, but he appeared to enjoy that. There's Roscoe. There's his girlfriend. I'm pretty sure her name's Ramona. He still has both of those. I just want to point out too that if I can figure this out. Nope. There's Tom used to feed them tortoise and monkey mash by Mazuri, which is that stuff just there by his feet. I would fill up a big bucket with the pellets, and then I'd wet it up and turn it into this bit of a sort of a sloppy thing, and that's what we'd feed to the iguanas. There was hundreds of iguanas, so there's plenty of feeding to be done. Had to dig deep into the Snapchat memories here for this one. This is that's a female king cobra that Tom called Kali. She was an interesting snake. She had almost sort of a hypomelanism sort of thing going on. She was very, very pale in coloration, and yeah, this was very intimidating for 21-year-old Joe Mack, having this thing stare me down. I don't know if I loved it or hated it, but anyway, here's one of the little marmosets. Very, very cool little thing, just bouncing around the place. Super cool thing. This was, and still is, the biggest snake I've ever seen in my life. This was a reticulated python that Tom had. I visited Tom a few years after I was there, and we fed it 20 kilos worth of rabbits that day. This thing's like 6 meters, I don't know, 80 to 100 kilos or something, like just enormous, terrifying, the most dangerous snake I've probably ever come across. I've said it before and I'll say it again. There is no anti-venom for asphyxiation. That thing would kill you dead. This here was a rhino viper. Very stunning one. I can't remember where Tom said these came from. Maybe the Congo. I can't remember, but yeah, particularly stunning. There's another picture of a rhino viper here that will pop up that didn't quite look like that, but equally as impressive. I found this little sort of Chinese food container lid laying around, and I thought that was pretty epic. There's the date. It's that 18th of June, 2016, King Cobra. I was freaking out seeing this. I was like, oh, they'd just put them in Chinese food containers and just send them around the place. I don't know. But yeah, now obviously I understand it. That's sort of how animals get shipped. This is a Sri Lankan palm pit viper, and me very early on in my venomous handling days. As you can see, that's not at all the technique that should be applied to holding an arboreal viper, but there I am doing it anyway. Rocking some University of Miami kit, which I have done in the last couple of podcast episodes too, actually. Tom had these blackheads, which were just massive, huge. That thing was very big. In the background of that picture, you can see a few of the outdoor enclosures where he's got. Florida has a lot of groundwater, so Tom had pretty much a constant drip or flow into most of the water sort of sections or areas in his enclosures, and then a little hide box, which quite often had heat in it as well, just on the back side of that enclosure. Not dissimilar to sort of how we build things over here, but his were very permanent structures as opposed to at least what I've done in the past where it's sort of movable. There's another little rhino viper there with striking colours. That's a fantastic snake. There's Roscoe again. He's such a dude. Yeah, very, very cool lizard. Tom Tom let them free range in the yard, and they just didn't leave. They would just cruise around the yard and live their best lives basically. This is a Madagascan day gecko, which I think has a fun species name. The species name is Phelsura madagascariensis, which is just fun to say. This was a wild one, I should mention too. Florida, if you're unawares, you've been living under a rock, but Florida has an exorbitant, extreme amount of invasive species, full stop, but reptiles in particular. So this guy was just living in the trees nearby. There were, I don't know, probably 10 species of invasive reptiles, just on the block, which is crazy. It's an axanthic green iguana. There's a litter of albino western diamondback rattlesnakes that were there whilst I was there at one point. There's Tom with a speckled rattlesnake, I believe. This was some morph of a western diamondback rattlesnake as well. I cannot remember the morph of that, but this was something I'd never seen before. It's a marta turtle. This one's particularly large from what I can gather too. If you're not aware of these, you should look them up. They're freaky looking things. They've got these heads that sort of mimic leaves underwater, I guess, and they ambush fish. They've got a really wide mouth for sucking up big fish. But that was the day we were cleaning their ponds, and Tom, I was like, Tom, where's your filtration, man? And like he had quite a few big ponds with turtles, and he's like, oh, we don't need filtration. We just pump water, like bore water, essentially out of the ground. There's so much groundwater that the water just he had just had a steady stream pumping up and in, and then flowing back out. And because the ground's so porous, it just flowed straight back down into the ground, which was pretty neat. I thought the water was always crystal clear and a good temperature too. There's a stack of green iguanas there, a literal stack. There's me and a good mate, Will Nace. I am short, but he makes me look really short. Will is like 6'9" or something, and I'm like 5'7", so makes for a good picture. Will's still doing good things over there. He's got his own and also keen viewers may see me wearing Will's shirt every so often. He runs Nace Reptile Center over in South Florida, where he does private tours and that sort of thing, and he's also on YouTube as well. Will Nace. There's that big ass gaboon again. Thing was a monster. It's my good mate Geordie. He was not a snake person at all, but Tom was gracious enough to allow me to bring a couple of friends out to visit once or twice, and that was one of the snakes that Geordie was able to get his hands on. It's a Dominican, a red mountain boa, I believe. Geordie's rocking his Bahamas shirt, which we took a 3-day cruise from Miami to the Bahamas and back with unlimited booze, which was very fun 10 years ago. It's a gaboon viper eating a rat. I bought a camera when I was in Miami and thought I'd get real deadly with photography. I didn't get deadly, but I had fun. I was trying to get a picture of the fangs, because gaboon vipers have the longest of all fangs of all snake species. I think the Mangshans probably give them a run for their money, but gaboons have got long ones, up to like 50 mil long. There's Will with a Siamese spitting cobra, which was a very cool snake. Very, very cool snake. There's an albino green iguana. There's me with a rhino viper. You know, something I found pretty interesting whilst I was in Florida is like they have the ability to keep a lot of things, but it is like fairly heavily regulated. When I was there I think I was visiting Tom's place, I don't know, 4 months, maybe 5 months in total. He had, a good relationship with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission. They would come out and they did a few inspections while I was there just to keep on top of things. And, if you want to keep venomous snakes over there, you have to complete 1,000 hours of training per, family of snakes that you want to keep. So It's 1,000 hours of elapid training, 1,000 hours of crotalids, the rattlesnakes, 1,000 hours of vipers, 1,000 hours of colubrids for like the boomslangs and that sort of thing, and 1,000 hours for the heloderma, the Gila monsters and bearded lizards. So it's 5,000 hours of training if you want to keep all of the venomous snakes over there, which, in Australia, we get the shits because we've got to do a snake handling course and a first aid course and send off our references and pictures of our escape-proof room. But they've got it a little bit tougher over there, I think, in some regards. They can keep all sorts of things, but not as easy. There's me and Tom and his wife Stacy and the Purple People Eater there. Yeah, those shirts were made by another mate that I made while I was there, Ron Sadler. They were trying to get rid of venomous reptile permits in Florida. So he made these shirts that says, nobody needs to own venomous reptiles. I have to read it. And no one needs a whiny little bitch, but here you are. Oh, classic. And yeah, there's a Mangshan viper. This one was a pretty special snake that Tom had raised from a very young animal, up to about 8 feet long. A very special snake, very, very relaxed, like extremely relaxed. This snake's behavior didn't warrant the facial expressions I've got going on. And yeah, it's literally this image has encouraged me to just pose for the damn photo instead of trying to talk to someone, look like a freak. But yeah, very, very cool snake, the Mangshan viper. Another snake that I didn't know existed until I got to see one in the flesh, which is very cool. Hemingway, the Grand Cayman iguana again there. There's me with a speckled rattlesnake. This one is a neotropical rattlesnake, I believe. Crotalus dorissus, I think. But yeah, Tom just had a shitload. So many different species. It was very cool. There's that Sri Lankan palm pit viper again. Looking very good. I had to go digging through my Instagram and Snapchat memories to get all these images. This is the last one here. This is a Gila monster. Tom had 16 or 18 of them delivered one day, and I got to help unbox them all and learn how to hold a venomous lizard like that, which was very cool. Very, very cool. I was very, very fortunate to be able to do that. It's pretty bloody crazy. But yeah, there's over half an hour of me just yapping, sharing some of my experiences there. I'm pretty eager to see how this docuseries appears and how it comes out. Yeah, I talked to Tom recently on the phone, and I reckon we might be able to swindle him for an episode a little later on down the track. If you are interested in hearing that, let me know. Let me know if you want me to do an episode with Tom. Yeah, I think that's probably all I wanted to say. So, yeah, I guess as always, everybody, thank you so much for listening. These solo episodes are a bit weird, but yeah, we'll get her done. So yeah, thanks so much for listening. As always, you can reach out to me on Instagram at joemac.uthl. If you've enjoyed the content, please consider liking, subscribing, and following along. Cheers.